Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Emma hurried out of the restaurant, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the heat of embarrassment flushing her cheeks as she stepped onto the bustling sidewalk. The sound of the city seemed louder than ever, but all she could think about was the awkwardness of the situation. She had just walked away from a man she had thought was Kevin, only to realize moments later that she had made a complete fool of herself. She glanced at her phone again, seeing the message from Jenny confirming Kevin's location at table 7. She shook her head, trying to make sense of it all. She should have known better. As she walked quickly down the street, she couldn't help but replay the conversation she had just had with Liam. Despite the mix-up, there was something about him. His calm demeanor, his genuine smile had made her feel oddly at ease. It wasn't just the kind of polite conversation she was used to in her daily life as a waitress. There had been something real there. Something she didn't quite understand. She felt a strange connection, and it bothered her. She finally stopped at the corner, taking a deep breath. Was it possible that Liam was actually a nice guy? Or was it just that he seemed so different from the people she usually encountered, rich, polished, and self-absorbed? She pulled her coat tighter around her and walked a little faster, shaking off the thoughts. She had enough problems to worry about without getting caught up in someone like him. Back at his penthouse, Liam sat back in his chair, the view of the New York City skyline no longer comforting. His mind wandered to Emma, to their brief but interesting conversation. He should have corrected her immediately when she mistook him for Kevin, but he hadn't. Something in her smile, her awkwardness, and her genuine nature made him hesitate. He couldn't quite figure out why. He wasn't the type to let people get to him. In his world, everything was calculated, controlled. Yet, with Emma, he felt different. He ran a hand through his hair, leaning back in his chair. What was it about her? Liam hadn't expected to feel this way. After all, he was a CEO, surrounded by people who were either after his money or his position. It was rare for him to meet someone who didn't care about his status. Emma had been so open, so honest. Even if it had been a mix-up, there was a genuine connection there. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about her ever since she left, and he wondered if he would ever see her again. The next morning, as Emma was finishing her shift at the diner, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her legs were sore from standing all day, and her mind was scattered. She had barely slept the night before, still feeling embarrassed about her encounter with Liam. But as she poured coffee into a mug for a customer, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Hi Emma, this is Liam. I was the guy at the restaurant the other night. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe? Emma froze, staring at the screen. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Was he really reaching out to her again? She wasn't sure what to think. She had made a fool of herself, ran out on him without even saying goodbye. But he didn't seem upset. In fact, he sounded sincere. She showed the message to Jenny, who immediately grinned. You've got to be kidding me. Of course you should say yes. This is your chance. Who cares about the mix-up? Just go for it. Emma hesitated, but something in Jenny's enthusiasm made her second-guess her initial doubts. After all, what was the worst that could happen? She was just going to get coffee. She could handle that. After a few seconds, Emma tapped out a reply. Okay, coffee sounds nice. They agreed to meet at a small cafe, not far from the diner. When Emma arrived, she saw Liam already sitting at a corner table. He was dressed casually, in jeans and a soft gray sweater that made him look more approachable than the polished businessman she had first encountered. He looked up when she entered, his smile warm and welcoming. Hey, Emma. Thanks for agreeing to meet me again, Liam said, standing as she approached. Emma smiled awkwardly. I figured I owed you an apology for running out the other night. Liam waved his hand dismissively. No need for an apology. I thought it was pretty funny, actually. They sat down, and Emma immediately felt more at ease. They talked about everything and nothing. She told him more about her life, about her dreams of becoming an artist, and how she had always wanted to open a small studio. She spoke with such passion that Liam couldn't help but be captivated by her. There was something raw and real about Emma that he hadn't encountered in anyone else. As they talked, the conversation shifted to their jobs. So, what do you do, Liam? Emma asked, her curiosity piqued. Liam hesitated for a moment before answering. I work in tech. Emma raised an eyebrow. Tech, huh? Coding and all that stuff? Something like that, Liam replied with a small smile, choosing not to go into more detail. Emma laughed softly. I'm terrible with computers. I'd probably break something if I tried to figure it out. Liam chuckled. I'm sure you do just fine. He found himself drawn to her authenticity. She didn't pretend to be someone she wasn't, and that was refreshing. As the afternoon wore on, they both felt a sense of ease that neither of them had expected. There was no pretension, no expectations, just two people talking and getting to know one another. And as they parted ways later that day, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. Something real. The days following their coffee date were a whirlwind for Emma. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam. Every time her phone buzzed, she hoped it was him, though deep down, she told herself to stay grounded. It had only been one date, one coffee, and she didn't want to get her hopes up. But something about him lingered in her mind. He was different from anyone she'd ever met. He was kind, patient, and there was a genuine curiosity about her life, her dreams. It was like he actually saw her. As the week passed, Emma found herself replaying their conversations in her head. She caught herself smiling at random moments, remembering how easy it had been to talk to him, how much she had enjoyed their time together. It was strange. For someone who usually felt invisible, who had always felt like the odd one out, Liam made her feel like she mattered. She could tell he was holding something back, though. His answers about his job were vague, and he never went into detail about his life, but Emma didn't push. She was just grateful for the connection they had. Liam, on the other hand, found himself thinking about Emma more and more as the days went by. He had expected to forget about their awkward first meeting, but he couldn't. There was something so genuine about her, so real, it made him wonder why he had never noticed someone like her before. Every interaction, every word, made him feel alive in a way he hadn't in years. He couldn't quite explain it, but he felt drawn to her. His mind kept going back to that smile, the way she talked about her art, her dreams of owning a studio. One evening, as he sat in his penthouse, staring out at the New York skyline, he realized that he wanted to see her again. He hadn't felt this way about anyone in a long time, and the idea of letting her slip away was unsettling. He picked up his phone and typed out a quick message. Hey Emma, I was wondering if you'd like to get dinner with me this weekend? He hesitated for a moment before hitting send. What was he doing? He wasn't the type to get emotionally invested so quickly. But Emma had a way of making him feel things he couldn't ignore. The next morning, Emma was busy at the diner when her phone vibrated in her pocket. She checked it quickly between taking orders. Liam's name flashed on the screen. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened the message. Hey Emma, I was wondering if you'd like to get dinner with me this weekend? A smile spread across her face before she could stop it. She glanced at Jenny, who was sitting at the counter, and showed her the message. Jenny raised an eyebrow, clearly excited. So, are you going to say yes? She asked with a mischievous grin. Emma bit her lip, feeling a bit nervous but excited at the same time. This was more than she had ever expected. It was just dinner, but for some reason, it felt like something more. I guess I have no reason not to, Emma said, her voice slightly shaky. She quickly typed a response, I'd love to. What time? Liam's reply came almost immediately. How about 7 p.m.? I'll pick you up. Emma couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement in her chest. It was only a dinner, but somehow, it felt like the beginning of something more. She had spent so many years focused on surviving, getting through each day, that she hadn't allowed herself to think about what it might feel like to truly connect with someone. But with Liam, there was something different. Something that made her want to take a chance. The evening arrived quickly, and Emma found herself standing in front of her apartment mirror, trying to decide what to wear. She didn't want to overdo it, but she also wanted to look nice. After a few minutes of indecision, she settled on a simple dress that she had bought on sale a few months ago. It wasn't fancy, but it made her feel good. She touched up her makeup, ran a brush through her hair, and then glanced at the clock. He would be there soon. When Liam arrived, he looked as charming as ever, his dark hair neatly styled and a warm smile on his face. He greeted her with a soft, "You look great." Emma blushed slightly, feeling a bit shy under his gaze. He opened the door for her, and she climbed into the car, her heart racing with anticipation. The dinner was more relaxed than Emma had expected. They went to a small, intimate restaurant that Liam had picked out. It wasn't fancy, but the ambience was cozy, and the food was delicious. Over dinner, they talked about their lives. Emma shared more about her struggles, her hopes for the future, and her passion for art. Liam, in turn, opened up a little more about his life, though he still kept certain details vague. She noticed that, but she didn't push him. Instead, she focused on the ease of their conversation, the way their connection deepened with each passing minute. When the meal ended, Liam insisted on driving her home. The drive was quiet but comfortable, and Emma felt a sense of calm that she hadn't felt in a long time. When they arrived at her apartment building, Liam turned off the engine but didn't immediately get out. He looked at her, his expression softening. "I'm really glad we did this," he said quietly. "Me too," Emma replied, her voice almost a whisper. Liam hesitated for a moment, then leaned over and kissed her cheek gently. "Good night, Emma," he said, before opening the door and stepping out of the car. Emma stood in front of her apartment building, watching him drive away. She touched her cheek where his lips had brushed against her skin, her heart fluttering in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Could this really be happening? Was it possible that this man, this connection could be the start of something real? She didn't know for sure, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The days that followed their dinner were filled with a strange kind of anticipation for Emma. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam. It wasn't just the way he looked, or the way he made her laugh. It was the way he listened to her. Really listened. She wasn't used to feeling seen, especially not by someone like him. She had always been used to being the background character in her own life, just getting by, doing her best to survive. But with Liam, things felt different. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she wasn't invisible. That maybe, just maybe, she deserved something more. It had been a few days since their dinner, and Emma was walking on air, though she tried to keep her feelings in check. She didn't want to rush into anything, not after everything she had been through. But it was hard not to. Every time she saw Liam's name on her phone, her heart skipped a beat. It was like he was slowly becoming a part of her life in ways she hadn't expected. Liam, on the other hand, found himself thinking about her even more than he had before. The more time they spent together, the more he realized how much he appreciated her company. He was drawn to her in a way that was hard to ignore. The first few times they had met, he hadn't thought much of it, assuming it was just a casual thing. But now, after a few dates and endless conversations, he was beginning to feel something real. Something he wasn't sure how to navigate. On the surface, everything in his life seemed perfect. He had built a successful company, had a high-rise apartment overlooking the city, and a life that most people would envy. But inside, he was restless. The constant pressure to maintain his image, to keep up with expectations. She was tired. Emma had managed to remind him of what it felt like to just be himself. She didn't care about his wealth, or his status, or his name. She saw him for who he truly was. It was a feeling he hadn't had in years. And the more he thought about her, the more he wanted to see her again. One morning, while sitting at his office, Liam found himself typing out a message to Emma. It wasn't a grand gesture or a complicated plan. It was just a simple question. Hey, would you like to join me for a charity event this weekend? It's for a good cause, and I think you'd enjoy it. He knew it wasn't exactly a casual invitation, but he felt like he had to take that step. He wanted to see her more, to get to know her better, and he knew that this event would be the perfect opportunity to do just that. He hit send and waited, his fingers tapping nervously against the desk. Emma's reply came a few minutes later, and Liam's heart skipped a beat when he saw the message. I'd love to. Sounds like a great event. What time should I be ready? His face broke into a smile as he quickly typed back, confirming the details. It was happening. They were going to spend more time together, and for the first time in a while, Liam felt a flicker of excitement. The event was held in a grand ballroom, with sparkling chandeliers overhead and guests in elegant attire. Liam had arranged for Emma to be his date for the evening, and although she was nervous, she was excited. She had never been to an event like this before. She spent the entire afternoon preparing, picking out a dress she had bought on sale a few months ago. It wasn't fancy, but it made her feel confident in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. When Liam arrived to pick her up, he was dressed in a tailored suit, looking every bit the part of the successful CEO that he was. But when he saw Emma, his smile softened. She was stunning. Not because she was dressed in the finest clothes, but because she carried herself with such grace, her natural beauty shining through. She was nervous, but her eyes sparkled with excitement, and that was all he needed to see. You look amazing, Emma, he said as he opened the car door for her. She smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. The event was just as grand as she had imagined, with elegantly dressed guests mingling around, sipping champagne and discussing business. Liam introduced her to a few people, but Emma didn't feel out of place. She wasn't as familiar with the high society world, but Liam made her feel comfortable. She laughed at his jokes, engaged in conversations, and even managed to charm a few people with her wit. She felt like she was finally part of a world that she never thought she could belong to. As the evening wore on, Liam and Emma found themselves on the balcony, away from the noise of the crowd. The city lights stretched out before them, and the cool night air felt refreshing. They stood in silence for a moment, just taking in the view. You okay? Liam asked, glancing over at her. Emma nodded, a soft smile on her lips. Yeah, it's all so different from what I'm used to. But in a good way. Liam smiled, his eyes never leaving hers. I'm glad you're here. For the rest of the evening, they spent more time together, talking, laughing, and sharing moments that made Emma feel like she had finally found someone who understood her. As they said their goodbyes and left the event, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of connection with Liam that went beyond the surface. When Liam dropped her off at her apartment, he turned to her, his expression softening. I'm really glad we did this. Thank you for coming. Emma smiled, her heart full. Thank you for inviting me. I had a great time. As she walked into her apartment, she couldn't help but feel that things were starting to change. For the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. She had spent so many years trying to make it on her own, but now, she was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than struggling. Maybe there was a future with Liam in it. The next few weeks were a blur for Emma. Every time she saw Liam, she felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Their connection was undeniable, but the deeper she got, the more she wondered if she was simply caught in a fairy tale. He was everything she had never expected as CEO with his life figured out, and she was just her. A waitress with a dream of owning an art studio. Despite everything, she couldn't help but feel drawn to him. But there were moments when doubts crept in. He had never told her much about his life before they met. When she asked, he would always shift the topic or change the subject entirely. He was a man of few words when it came to himself, and that left her wondering what he was hiding. Still, every time they were together, it felt so natural, as though they had known each other for years. She wanted to believe that maybe he was just a private person, not someone who was hiding something. But her heart wasn't so sure. One evening, after an art show Emma had attended, Liam texted her, asking if they could meet. It was a little late, but she agreed, hoping to spend some more time with him. She had missed him more than she cared to admit, and the thought of seeing him again was enough to push aside any doubts. When she arrived at the restaurant where they were meeting, she found Liam already seated at a corner table. He looked at her with a smile, his usual confident self, but something in his eyes seemed different tonight. It was as if he was struggling with something, though he tried his best to hide it. "You look amazing," he said as she took her seat. Emma smiled, though she could sense something was off. "Thank you. What's going on? You seem a little distant tonight." Liam paused for a moment, his eyes meeting hers. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for his glass and took a long sip. After a few seconds of silence, he spoke, his voice more serious than usual. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about us. And I think it's time I tell you something." Emma felt a rush of anxiety. She had known this moment would come, but she hadn't expected it to feel so heavy. "What is it, Liam?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. Liam leaned in slightly, his gaze focused on her. "There's something I've been hiding from you, about who I really am." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "You've always been honest with me." He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "No, Emma. I haven't been. I wasn't completely upfront with you from the start." He took a deep breath, as if preparing himself. "I'm not just any CEO. I'm the heir to a much larger company. I've been hiding my identity because I didn't want you to see me as just another rich guy. I wanted you to see me for who I am, not for my money." Emma was taken aback. She had always known there was something he wasn't saying, but this was bigger than she had imagined. So, all this time, she trailed off, trying to process the information. "You're not just a tech guy. You're a billionaire heir?" Liam nodded, his expression filled with regret. "I know it's a lot to take in. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. I wanted to be the man you saw at the coffee shop, the one who was real and genuine, but I've been carrying this burden, pretending to be someone I'm not." Emma's mind was racing, her thoughts colliding in every direction. She wanted to feel angry, or betrayed, but all she could think about was the man sitting across from her. The man who had shared parts of himself with her, the man who had made her feel like she mattered. She had fallen for him, not because of his wealth, but because of who he was in those quiet moments. "So, what does this mean?" she asked, her voice quiet. "Does this change everything? Is this all a game to you?" Liam's face softened. "No, Emma. It's not a game. I care about you, and I always have. I never wanted you to find out like this, but I couldn't keep hiding from you. I needed you to know the truth." Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She had no idea what to feel. She wasn't angry, but she was hurt. She didn't know if she could trust him completely now that she knew the truth. She had always been upfront with him, always showed him the real her. But now, she wasn't sure if she knew who he really was. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I need time to think about this. It's a lot." Liam nodded, his face etched with worry. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I don't want to rush you, Emma. I just wanted you to know the truth." Emma stood up, her heart heavy. She didn't want to leave, but she needed some space. "I'll call you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam didn't try to stop her. He just watched her leave, his heart sinking with every step she took away from him. He had hoped that being honest would make things better, but now, he wasn't sure if he had made the right decision. As Emma walked back to her apartment, her mind was a whirlwind of emotions. She had so many questions, so many thoughts running through her head. She had fallen for Liam, but could she trust him now? Could she believe that his feelings for her were real, or was it all part of his plan to protect his identity? She didn't have the answers, but she knew one thing for sure: things had just changed, and she wasn't sure where they would go from here. The next few days felt like a blur for Emma. She couldn't stop thinking about what Liam had told her. The truth about who he really was. She had always known there was something more to him than the tech guy he had led her to believe, but the reality of it had hit her harder than she expected. The fact that he was the heir to a fortune, a billionaire in disguise, it left her feeling conflicted. Was it really him she had connected with, or was it just a version of him that he had wanted her to see? Emma spent most of the week avoiding Liam's calls and texts. She needed time to process everything. The feeling of betrayal lingered in her chest, but so did the memory of the man she had laughed with, the man who had made her feel like she mattered, not because of her bank account or her job, but because of who she was. That man was still real to her, but could she reconcile the person he had hidden from her with the person he truly was? It was Friday night when Liam finally showed up at her apartment. She had just finished a long shift at the diner and was barely keeping her eyes open when she heard a knock on her door. At first, she hesitated, unsure of what to expect, but when she opened it, there he was standing in front of her, looking apologetic but determined. "Liam," she said, her voice soft, a little tired. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice quiet but full of emotion. "I know you need time, and I respect that, but I can't leave things like this. I care about you, Emma, and I need you to know that. I never meant to hurt you." Emma stepped back, allowing him to come inside. She was still upset, but part of her didn't want to shut him out completely. She couldn't just pretend like everything was fine, but she also didn't want to lose him without giving him a chance to explain himself fully. "I don't know what to say, Liam," she said as they both sat down on the couch. "You told me the truth, and I appreciate that, but I feel like I've been lied to, in a way. Everything we've shared, everything I thought I knew about you, feels like it was built on a lie." Liam's eyes softened, and he took a deep breath. "I get it. I really do. I never wanted you to think that who I am, what I have, is all that matters. But the truth is, I've been hiding behind my wealth for so long that I didn't know how to just be myself. I didn't want you to see me as a rich man, someone who only attracts people because of what he has. I wanted you to see the real me, the one who's been lonely for a long time, the one who wants something more than just business deals and fancy parties." Emma looked at him, her heart still unsure. She had believed in the man she had met, the one who listened to her, who made her feel seen. But now, with this new revelation, she wasn't sure where that left her. Could she trust that the man who stood before her was the same person she had connected with? "I don't know if I can just forget everything, Liam," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to believe you, I really do, but this is a lot. You're not just some guy I met at a coffee shop. You're this CEO, this heir, and I don't know how to fit that into what we've been. I don't want to feel like I'm some charity case, or that I'm only worth your time because you feel guilty or something." Liam reached for her hand, his touch gentle but insistent. "Emma, I'm not here because I feel guilty. I'm here because I want to be with you. I've been trying to figure out how to balance this, how to let you see the real me, without overwhelming you with the things I've been hiding. I'm not asking you to ignore the truth. I just want you to know that I care about you. More than I've cared about anyone in a long time." For a moment, there was silence between them. Emma stared at his hand in hers, feeling the warmth of his touch. Her mind was still racing, but a part of her wanted to believe him. She had seen the way he looked at her, the way he spoke to her with such honesty and sincerity. It didn't feel like a game. It didn't feel like he was trying to manipulate her. "I don't know what to do," Emma whispered. "I've spent so much of my life trying to make it on my own. I'm afraid of depending on anyone. I don't want to be with someone just because they have money. I want something real. Liam squeezed her hand gently, looking her in the eyes. I understand. I'm not asking you to depend on me. I'm asking you to give us a chance. To give me a chance to prove that what I feel for you is real. Not because of my wealth, but because of who you are and how you make me feel. Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had been so afraid of letting herself be vulnerable, of trusting someone who could change everything for her. But in that moment, she realized that maybe, just maybe, the risk was worth it. Maybe she could take a chance on something real. I don't know what's going to happen next, Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I want to try. I want to see where this goes. Liam smiled, his relief evident. Thank you, Emma. That's all I can ask for. We'll take it one step at a time. As they sat there, hand in hand, Emma couldn't help but feel a little lighter. The weight of the uncertainty still hung over her, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to face it. She didn't know where this would lead, but she was ready to find out. For the first time in a long time, she was willing to take a leap of faith. The following days felt like a quiet storm to Emma. She had taken the first step accepting Liam's truth, trusting him enough to let their relationship grow. But as much as she wanted to move forward, the unease still lingered. Despite everything he had said, despite the moments they had shared, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Liam than what he had told her. What if she was just another one of his casual flings? What if, now that he had revealed his true identity, he no longer saw her as someone worth his time? Her mind kept circling back to the same questions, and she struggled to find peace. Liam, too, found himself wrestling with doubts. He had been honest with Emma, or so he thought, but the distance between them now felt palpable. She had agreed to give him a chance, but he could tell she was still holding back. It was like she was trying to protect herself, to keep a part of her life separate from his, and he understood why. He had done the same thing for years, hiding behind his wealth, his position, his status, but Emma had shattered that illusion. And now, all he wanted was to be with her, without the barriers they had both been so accustomed to. One evening, Liam decided to confront the tension that had been building between them. He picked up his phone and texted Emma, asking if they could meet. She replied quickly, agreeing to meet at a nearby park. When they saw each other, the atmosphere was heavier than usual, filled with unspoken words. The park was quiet, with the soft sound of leaves rustling in the evening breeze. They sat on a bench, the air cooler than it had been the past few days. Emma, Liam started, his voice calm but firm, we need to talk. Emma looked at him, the uncertainty in her eyes clear. About what? I know you've been holding back, he said, his eyes searching hers. And I get it. I've given you reasons to doubt me. But I need you to understand that I'm not asking you to change who you are. I just want to be with you. No games, no pretenses. I'm not some rich guy trying to buy your affection. Emma sighed, looking down at her hands. It's not that simple, Liam. I want to trust you. I really do. But there's still so much I don't know about you. About your life. You told me you were hiding things, and I understand why, but it's hard for me to just forget everything. It's hard to accept that I've been falling for a man I hardly know. Liam's heart sank at her words. I understand. I've spent my life building walls, and I know it's not easy to tear them down. But I'm trying, Emma. I'm trying to show you that this what we have is real. I know I've been secretive, and I know I've hurt you, but I'm asking for a chance to prove that I'm not just what you think I am. Emma turned to him, her voice softer now, though still filled with hesitation. And what if it's too late? What if we can't go back to the way things were? Liam reached for her hand, gently squeezing it. We don't have to go back. We can move forward. Together. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply sat there, the weight of the conversation hanging in the air between them. But slowly, Emma began to relax. She had been so caught up in her own doubts, in her own fear of being hurt again, that she had almost missed what Liam was offering her, something real. She could see it in his eyes now, the sincerity, the longing for something deeper. She had always prided herself on being independent, on being able to handle everything on her own. But maybe it was time to let go of that, to allow someone in. "I'm scared, Liam," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "But maybe we can try." Liam's face softened, his eyes lighting up with relief. "Thank you, Emma. That's all I want. To try." As they stood up from the bench, Liam pulled her into a gentle hug. It wasn't the kind of grand gesture she had imagined, but it felt more meaningful than anything else. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was taking a leap of faith into the unknown, but with someone who genuinely cared about her. She didn't know where this would go, but for once, she was ready to find out. And as Liam held her close, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, it felt like it was worth the risk. The next few days felt like a turning point for Emma and Liam. They had finally broken through the barriers of misunderstanding and uncertainty, but the road ahead was still unclear. Emma had opened herself up to the possibility of a future with Liam, and though it wasn't easy, she could feel her walls slowly coming down. But doubt still lingered in the back of her mind, as she couldn't quite shake the fear that Liam's true world, the one of wealth and power, would eventually drive a wedge between them. She had lived her whole life as an underdog, always on the outside looking in. Was she truly ready to step into his world? And more importantly, was he ready to step into hers? Liam, for his part, was doing everything he could to prove that he wasn't the man she feared. He didn't want to overwhelm her, but he was determined to show Emma that his feelings for her were real, not just some fleeting attraction. He had spent so many years hiding behind his wealth, pretending to be someone he wasn't, but with Emma, he was ready to be vulnerable. He wanted to build something with her, something honest and grounded, something that didn't require the facade of his status. One evening, Liam invited Emma to dinner at a small, cozy restaurant that wasn't the kind of place he usually frequented. It wasn't a high-end restaurant with elaborate decor or extravagant meals. It was simple, intimate, and it felt more like something out of her world than his. Emma was surprised but pleased by the gesture. This wasn't a place where business deals were made or people put on airs. This felt personal. When they arrived, the warmth of the atmosphere wrapped around them, and the gentle hum of soft music in the background set the tone for the evening. Liam had gone out of his way to make this dinner feel special, and Emma couldn't help but appreciate the effort. They sat down at a table by the window, and for the first time, the conversation between them wasn't about their pasts or their secrets, it was about their hopes for the future. "I've been thinking a lot," Liam began, his voice soft as he glanced across the table at her. "About what we want, about what's next. I don't want to keep things in limbo anymore. I want you to know that the susit's not just some temporary thing. I'm in this, Emma. For real." Emma looked at him, her heart fluttering at his words. "I'm glad you're saying that. Because I've been thinking a lot too. About what we're doing, where this is going. It's not just about the connection we have. It's about trust. It's about believing that we can be ourselves, without the fear of things falling apart. And I think I'm ready to take that leap with you." Liam smiled, his eyes softening as he reached across the table and took her hand. "You have no idea how much that means to me. I know I've made mistakes, I know I've kept things from you, but I want you to know that I'm all in. No more games, no more hiding." Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time in a while, she felt like the future wasn't just an uncertain blur. She could see a path ahead, one that wasn't perfect, but one she was willing to walk down with Liam. There were still questions, still fears, but she felt ready to face them, to build something real with him. As the night wore on, they laughed and talked, and for a few hours, everything felt normal. Emma wasn't thinking about his wealth, his status, or his family's expectations. She was just thinking about Liam. And in that moment, he was just thinking about her. When the meal was finished, Liam drove her home, and they sat in the car for a few minutes, not speaking. Emma had never felt this at ease with someone before. She wasn't pretending to be someone she wasn't, and neither was he. There was no need for games or masks. They were two people, just two people, trying to figure out what came next. "Good night, Emma," Liam said softly as he reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I'm really glad we're doing this. I really believe in us." Emma smiled, her heart full. "Me too, Liam. Me too." As she stepped out of the car and watched him drive away, Emma realized that, for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of what might come next. She didn't know how their story would unfold, but she was ready to face it together with Liam. The road ahead might not always be smooth, but they had taken the first step, and that was all that mattered. Weeks went by, and Emma and Liam continued to grow closer. There were still moments of uncertainty, but they had learned to navigate those moments together. The more time they spent with each other, the more they realized just how much they had in common. Their bond, which had started with a mix-up at a cafe, had blossomed into something real, something strong. Emma had learned to trust him, and Liam had learned to open up. They had both come to understand that their connection wasn't built on what they had or didn't have, but on the simple truth that they cared for each other deeply. One sunny afternoon, Liam invited Emma to an art exhibit, one that he knew she had been excited about for weeks. The event was held at a local gallery, and Emma could barely contain her excitement as they walked through the doors. The space was filled with vibrant paintings, and Emma felt like she was in her element. For a long time, she had dreamed of showing her own art in a place like this. As they strolled through the exhibit, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in herself. She had worked so hard to get here, and now, she was standing in front of paintings that spoke to her, that inspired her. It felt like a small victory. As they walked to the back of the gallery, Liam stopped in front of a painting, a beautiful abstract piece with bold colors and sharp angles. "I think this one's my favorite," he said, his voice soft. Emma smiled, admiring the painting. "It's incredible, isn't it?" Liam turned to her, his eyes softening. "I think you're incredible," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. "I know we've been through a lot, and we've had our share of doubts. But, Emma, I just wanted you to know that I've never felt like this before. You make me want to be a better person, every single day. And I'm so grateful for you." Emma's heart fluttered, and she reached for his hand. "Liam," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I feel the same way. I never thought I could trust someone like this. But you've shown me what it means to be real. To really live, to take chances. I've never felt more alive than I do with you." Liam smiled, his eyes shining with warmth. "Then let's keep going, together." A few weeks later, Liam took Emma to dinner at that same cozy restaurant they had visited a while ago, the one where they had first really talked, the one where they had shared their true selves with each other for the first time. As they sat at the same table by the window, Emma felt a rush of warmth. They had come so far since that night. Their relationship had grown stronger, and now, sitting there with Liam, she knew they had built something real. Liam reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "Emma," he said softly, his voice full of emotion, "I've been thinking about this for a while, and I know we've had our ups and downs, but I want you to know something. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. No more hiding, no more pretending. I want to be with you, always." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had always feared that something like this might not happen for her. She had always thought that she would be stuck in a cycle of uncertainty and loneliness. But here, with Liam, she had everything she had ever wanted. She smiled, her eyes shining with love. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Yes, I want that too." Liam smiled, a look of pure joy crossing his face. He stood up, moved around the table, and got down on one knee. The restaurant seemed to fade away, the only thing that mattered was the moment they were sharing. "Emma, will you marry me?" he asked, holding out a ring. Tears filled Emma's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Liam. Yes, I will marry you." The entire room erupted into applause as Liam slipped the ring onto her finger, but Emma didn't hear any of that. All she could hear was the steady beat of her heart, and the overwhelming feeling of love and certainty. The path ahead wouldn't always be easy. They would face challenges, like any couple, but Emma knew one thing for sure: together, they could handle anything. And as Liam pulled her into his arms, kissing her gently, Emma felt like the luckiest woman in the world. She had finally found someone who saw her for who she was, someone who loved her for all of her flaws and strengths. Someone who would stand by her side, no matter what. This was just the beginning of their story, and Emma couldn't wait to see where it would lead.